Yuna!
Merry belated Christmas, dudes. It's your boy Asian Psycho, aka Toro Sniper 98, and welcome back to another NAFGO how-to. This time we'll be taking a look at FGO's resident yandere goddess, not named Ishtar, Orion. I mean Artemis, because Orion's this guy. The teddy, yeah. Long story. Artemis is a 5-star archer who basically loopholed the fuck out of the summoning system just so that she could stalk her boyfriend, which then amounted to her outright hijacking his place as a servant, and then making them both worse off as a result. How she even stayed a 5-star after that shit is anyone's guess. Sounds like something another goddess would do.
お前ステータスが最初見た時から一切伸びてない気がするんだが。
バカねカズマ。ステータスなんて最初からカーストしてるに決まってるじゃない。そこらの一般の冒険者と一緒にすることが間違ってるわ。デストロイヤーエクスプロージョン。いやあら何よ。ずいぶん素直じゃないな。
つまりこいつはどれだけレベルを上げてももう知力は上がらないわけだ。
ねえちょっとなんで泣いてるの？なんでそんなかわいそうな人を見る目で私を見るの？
おやすみ。
ちょっとカズマ。
Kyuhime says hi, by the way. Artemis has 14,553 HP and 11,107 attack at level 90, and 15,943 HP and 12,158 attack at max grails. As you might have already figured out on your own after watching my Shisho vid, this means that Artie's a tanky archer, which, out of the archers that we do have here in NAFGO, is certainly a little unusual. Her star absorb is 153, star gen 8%, NP charge attack 1%, NP charge defense 3%, death rate 27%, and she's chaotic neutral. And even though this doesn't really matter, she's also one of the very few servants in the whole game, even on the JP side, whose third Saint Graph picture is significantly different than her first two. She's got a 2Q2A deck and an Arts Noble Phantasm, which means that she's an arts-focused servant. Her quick cards hit 3 times, her arts card hit 1 time, and her buster card hits 1 time, and her extra attack hits 4 times. So right off the bat, you'll notice that Artemis is thick, with at least 6 Cs thanks to her high health, but in exchange, under normal circumstances, she is not a DPS servant. Combine her low attack stat, the base archer class damage modifier of 0.95%, and her lack of buster cards, and it should become really apparent really fast that Artemis just doesn't have the same consistent firepower that other 5-star servants have. Or hell, even other 4-star archers do. This means that, naturally, if you want your local Greek goddess to do some big girl damage, you'll need to turn to other ways of having her pump out that damage. Fortunately, she's got options in the form of crits and her Noble Phantasm, that we'll discuss shortly. Her being an arts-centric servant means that she can charge her NP decently even on her own thanks to her 1% attack charge gain, but try to put her in an arts team anyway to maximize her arts deck utility. And her good star gen stat means that she can produce a fair bit of crit stars, and with the 2 quick cards, she's actually not bad on a quick team. It's just that she's not an ideal quick servant or a quick support servant because her quick cards don't have a lot of hits on them that would make more use out of her decent star gen. At most, under normal circumstances, Artemis is similar to Okita in the fact that she'll only be able to produce enough stars for herself, and even then, she can't even produce anywhere near enough stars to make herself her own crit star generator, so she'll need to rely on a dedicated star gen servant to make the most out of her crit roll, which we'll talk about later. Plot Goddess's first skill is Affection of the Goddess EX. Its effect is threefold. It boosts her defense from 30 to 50% depending on level for 1 turn, buffs her attack by 20% for 3 turns, and increases her debuff resistance by 50% for 3 turns. This is arguably Artie's most practical skill as it gives her a lot of effects in one neat little package. The defense buff is great since it accentuates her tankiness, and at max rank, Affection of the Goddess is comparable to something like Tamomo's Shapeshift skill, especially when you realize that this is only one of the effects that this skill gives. The attack buff is great too since it gives her some seriously needed damage, and the debuff resist, while not the most significant effect, is still nice to have since paired with her passive debuff resist skill boosts it to 62.5% for 3 turns, unless I'm calculating my debuff resistance wrong, which I very well may be. The only problem that I have with this skill is the fact that her attack buff doesn't scale with levels like her defense buff does. While a 20% attack buff does go a long way, don't get me wrong, just because of how low Artemis' attack is to begin with, she could really do with more. But as is, it's still a great skill, probably her best skill like I mentioned before. Her second skill is Whimsical Bond A+, or Punish the Unfaithful in NA.
Translation T.
It increases her attack against male targets for 1 turn from 50 to 100%, making this very similar to other specialized high damage skills such as Shisho's Godslayer skill or Nobu's Tenka Fubu skill that deal huge damage against certain targets. This is bar none her best source of damage, and simply because of the scaling she can do
Terrible damage
to any male enemies even without class damage, and with class advantage she just outright nukes them. So if you're fortunate or unfortunate enough to have her, this makes her the perfect candidate to whoop a certain saber's ass in a future chapter. Wait, her third skill is Mind's Eye False B-, which is an evade skill that also contributes significantly to her tankiness, since it lets her ignore an attack for 1 turn. It also buffs her crit damage from 17 to 34% depending on level, which goes very nicely with her archer class and its high star pull weight, and her second passive skill, which is Independent Action A+. Keep in mind that Independent Action A+ is the second strongest passive crit skill in the game, and Orion shares this with NAFGO's other 5-star archer at the time of this video recording, Pathetic Saber Lover. Vic Goddess's MP is Tristar Amore Mio, which is a single target arts NP that deals 900 to 1500% damage depending on MP level. It also reduces the target's attack by 20% if they're still alive after damage is applied for 3 turns. But keep in mind that since this is a debuff effect, it can be resisted if the enemies got some sort of debuff resistance. Its overcharge effect is a chance to reduce enemy MP charge by 1, from 60 to 100% depending on overcharge effect, level, and like Taomo's or Vlad's NP drain skills, this bypasses debuff resistance entirely, so if you happen to get this on overcharge level 5, it's a guaranteed drain. While by itself Tristar doesn't do a whole ton of damage, no thanks to Artie's low attack stat, the 2 effects it has nonetheless still make it a decent utility NP. A 20% attack reduction is nothing to scoff at, and as I mentioned in my how to use all the 5 stars in the game video when I was talking about Artie, it indirectly makes her even tankier, and the entire party too for that matter. And the MP drain, while it isn't a guaranteed chance unless at overcharge 5, can still come in clutch if it lands in case no one else on your party has skills available to stall enemy NPs. However, her second interlude that becomes available once you clear the America chapter injects Tristar with some magic steroids or some shit or whatever the hell it is that American football and baseball players take to boost their league stats by not only increasing the raw damage scaling to 1200 to 1800% depending on MP level, but also making the MP drain effect a guaranteed effect instead, and replacing it with a new overcharge effect, a chance to reduce the enemy's crit chance from 20 to 60% depending on overcharge level. The MP drain effect is perhaps the single greatest buff that this MP interlude provides. The damage buff is great too, of course, but the fact that you no longer have to worry about RNG on the drain effect really opens up a lot of strategies as far as skill usage goes. And since Taomo with their Fox's Wedding is naturally going to be one of the best teammates whom Artie can have, with Taomo's own Witchcraft skill, you can juggle them to ensure that you'll almost always have a drain available to you whenever you need it. And speaking of strategies,
I feel it deep inside, I couldn't shake this even if I tried.
you can use plush toy fetishists in one of 2 ways, a tanky archer or a crit archer. Artie's got the health to tank hits for the team or survive on her own. However, that being said, while she's got skills that boost her defense or evade attacks, she can't regen health on her own to keep sustaining her own tankiness, so she'll need help with that either from her teammates or from craft essences. But because her skills are great at allowing her to tank damage, even something like Moonbat that gives her 500 health a turn really goes a long way to keeping her alive over the course of a fight. Perhaps the more effective role for her is the crit role, having skills that boost her regular damage and her crit damage, and being in the archer class more or less screams crit archer for her from the very start. But as discussed earlier, she's got very clear problems that her kit can address, namely star generation, so she needs teammates who can provide her with crit stars on the regular. Giving her CEs that buff her star generation won't really help or won't be as effective, so I would say just concentrate on improving her strengths, which are either star pull weight in case you're putting Artie in a team with other high star pull weight servants, or even more crit damage. And finally, regardless of which role you choose for her, Plot Goddess can always be used as a nuke archer thanks to her whimsical bond skill, and while her first attack's attack buff can't compare to something like Shisho's primeval rune skill, the melee specialization makes Artie's NP just as effective if not more since there's a lot of male servants and enemies in general in the game. Set her up right, and you might be left wondering just what kind of damage she could do if she was in her proper goddess form instead. However, Artemis can't be used as effectively in general purpose battles or for farming because she just doesn't do a lot of damage in general outside of the aforementioned crit rolls and whatnot, and because she's only got one buster card. She definitely fits the looks like this is a job for Aquaman trope. Most of the time, you're really only bringing her along so that she can fill a niche that you need for a particular fight, and in many cases, there's probably just someone else who happens to be better for the job or more readily available. That being said, there's one very infamous instance where Artemis really can save your sorry ass, and y'all should know about it since all the JP Doomsayers have been warning NA about it for the past 6 months or something like that, and that's Camelot. Specifically this asshole. He doesn't like how Hakuno and Gil fucked him over back in CCC, so now he's back for revenge, or whichever game that he got fucked in. Thankfully, Artie can save you from Vitamin D Overdose Bastard, along with David and Uriel and whoever else can bully Gawain right back. Artie being a Greek goddess is, not surprisingly, really fucking selfish, with no support skills other than her overall lackluster ability to generate a few crit stars for her team. So if you want to use her to her fullest potential, most of the time you need to build teams specifically around her, and no, Orion doesn't count because he's just stupid moral support. And since Artie has problems that are really apparent, it's up to the teammates you choose for her to put some band-aids over them for her. For example, use Spineless Whiny Bitch or anyone else who's got attack buff skills so that she can hit a little bit harder, and bring along star gens like Jack to make sure that she can fulfill her crit roll as best she can. Naturally, with My Free Cam's goddess being an arts servant, Bushy Tail is Artie's best friend with her Fox's Wedding skill. If you want to nuke someone, unless there's a very good reason why you can't have her there with her, bring Bushy Tail along just to ensure that whoever Artie's nuking from orbit dies. Even besides Fox's Wedding, Artie and Tammy can both MP stall, as I've discussed before, and since both of them have defense boosting skills with high HPs, they can both last a very long time. As for craft essences, like I said, give Artie ones that improve her strengths rather than fix her problems, since it's preferable to have her teammates handle the job of covering for her downsides wherever they can, in true Greek mythological fashion. So in this case, I'd recommend another ending over Formal Craft because of her strong crit attributes, though Formal Craft itself isn't bad either, obviously. And because Artie doesn't have a crit star pull skill, Seal Designation Enforcer is great on her so that she can reliably pull stars in for herself. Antumbra, Gudao, and Knight's Pride all go a long way in improving her crit damage, with Gudao also improving her NP damage too, which is nice. And since Artie can nuke people with her NP, Heaven's Feel, Halloween Princess, and Black Grail are all great on her, but especially Black Grail because she both has the health to tank the damage and has the NP charging capabilities to get her NP up in the first place. And finally, 2030 and Moonbath are also viable options on her, the former for additional crit star support, and the latter for improved tankiness. Alright, my fellow thick goddess enthusiasts, what have we learned today? Well, your girl Diana has the ability to castrate males with her MP and can take a beating thanks to her high health and defensive skills, though she'd prefer to hand out her own beatings, especially to Orion, in the form of crits. But true to her fickleness as a goddess, she won't perform as well in just any fight. You've got to both set her up right and give her the right targets for her to truly reach her final form as the proper goddess Artemis, or as close as she can get as a pseudo-servant, or whatever the fuck type moons call him now these days. And so give her Jack and Waver, or anyone else who can give her attack buffs and crit stars. Make Gawain eat shit, cuddle Orion a few times to make her jealous, and that's all you really need to know about your local domestic violence goddess.
It's a stupid idea! You're a stupid man! A stupid, stupid man!
Ow! You're hurting me! Stop it! Stop it, Lois!
No! I'm so sick of your crap! Why do you always do these stupid things? And why do you always announce them to me before you do them? Are you trying to get a rise out of me? Are you happy now? Is this what you want?
Down in the description is another Twitter poll for the next video in this series, either on Saber or Altera. I'll also have it in the pinned comment at the top of the comment section below for y'all to see. I'm also working on a video that will cover all the 4-star servants in the game like I promised like a month ago or so, similar to my how to use all the 5 stars in the game video that I put out like 2 months ago, along with a new and updated essential materials video to replace the one I also made before that's also about like 3 months outdated by now or something like that. Those should be up either within the week or within a few days of New Year's. So thanks for watching. Have fun grinding London free quests, and have a happy gotcha salt-free New Year in case my next 2 videos don't come out before then. Deuces!
Send a message, know that you read it. Oh, don't play. Can't say that I know where we're headed. Is it too late?